over fields of green, remembering the faces, the moments unseen, the hands that built a dynasty, the vision in their eyes, echoes in the auction barn beneath an endless sky. This is the bovine, turn the volume high, for the icons of the ages that never will die. From the show ring thunder to the quiet strength they knew, hear their stories now, coming right on through.
Hey there, bovine listeners, it's your host here, and do I have a story for you today? It's a tale that sounds like something straight out of a movie, a story about defying the odds, a quiet revolution, and how one incredible animal born from the most unexpected circumstances changed the entire dairy world. We're talking about Picston Shottle, a name that, if you're in the dairy business, you know. But do you know the full story? Because it's far more fantastic than you could ever imagine. Now imagine this. The year is 1950. The world is still recovering from war, and in a quiet barn in Barrie, Ontario, a father, Ed McLean, calls his 17-year-old son Don over. He points to a pen of young heifers and says, simply, "There they are, son. Pick one of them." Just out of high school, standing on the cusp of his future, Don looks them over, and something about one specific heifer catches his eye. Maybe it was her presence, or the name she'd eventually carry on her papers. He chose Cranford Sovereign Marjorie, a simple gift meant to give a young man a leg up in life. Little did they know that one choice would send ripples through generations, eventually reshaping the global dairy industry in ways neither father nor son could have ever dreamed. Don, you see, he always called her Marge, and the sovereign in her name? That resonated with him, tied to the legendary Montvic rag apple sovereign that every dairy enthusiast back then knew by heart. This wasn't just a calf, it was the seed of something truly monumental, something pedigree expert Douglas Blair would later call the best proof in the world today, and a royal family whose ultimate expression was Picston Shottle. But to truly appreciate the magnitude of what began in that Ontario barn, we have to rewind a bit further, back to the Great Depression, and the incredible empire of a man named Howard Crane. Born in 1895 in Tillsonburg, Ontario, Crane was one of those rare entrepreneurs who just thrived when everyone else was struggling. By the 1930s, he wasn't just surviving, he was the most prominent and prosperous citizen of Boston and Waterford, Ontario, building an agricultural empire that absolutely defied the economic devastation around him. Can you just picture it? The morning symphony of Crane's operation, the steady hum of milking machines, pulling milk into those massive 80-gallon cans, the contented lowing of 140 Holstein cows producing over 23 cans of milk daily, and the rumble of 7 trucks carrying what was essentially genetic gold to American farms. This wasn't just luck. His success was built on an almost superhuman work ethic and a business sense that was truly ahead of its time. He was buying farms at an astonishing rate, one every 2 years for a decade, eventually owning a dozen properties, 4 dedicated to dairying, another housing a flock of Shropshire sheep. But where Crane really shone was his genius for cattle trading. He made his fortune buying and selling dairy cows. All through the 1930s, he shipped 25 head each week to the U.S. alone. Cows would typically stay in his possession for only a day or two, a high-volume, lightning-fast operation that moved cattle through his farms like a powerful river of genetic potential. Then came early 1941. Crane made a pivotal business decision. He wanted to buy the Duncombe Coal and Feed Mill at Waterford and start a transportation business. To focus on these new ventures, he decided to sell everything, all his farms, cattle, and equipment, in what would become one of Holstein's most significant genetic dispersal events. The auction, March 26 to 28, 1941, advertised as the largest sale of cattle and farm machinery ever held in Western Ontario, and what unfolded was nothing short of a commercial extravaganza. Over 2,000 people from Ontario, Quebec, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania poured in. It was almost carnival-like. 4 auctioneers working in relay, bleachers set up around the auction ring. The crowd was so massive that they had to send out emergency orders for more lunch supplies. The air was electric with excitement. Prices soared. A grain separator brought over $1,000, a combine sold for over $600, and the top cow fetched $175. And there, among that sea of buyers, was Edgerton Ed McLean, an Elmvale farmer. He made what seemed like a routine purchase, a 3-year-old Holstein heifer named Cranford Elaine Burke. A simple transaction, yet one that would unknowingly lay the foundation for a genetic revolution decades in the making. Fast forward 2 years. Cranford Elaine Burke, now settled into McLean's herd, gave birth to a heifer calf. Ed McLean, lacking his own farm prefix, cleverly borrowed Crane's renowned Cranford designation and registered the calf as Cranford Sovereign Marjorie. Yes, that Marjorie. The heifer he would later offer to his teenage son as a gift that would change both their lives. Don McLean, as you can imagine, treasured that gift. After helping on the home farm for 4 years, he eventually established his own operation, Condon Farm, combining his name with his wife Connie. And there, he began the patient, methodical work of building a dynasty around Marjorie and her descendants. Cranford Sovereign, Marjorie proved to be an extraordinary foundational cow. She produced 4 very good daughters, each establishing distinct family lines that Don would meticulously develop over decades. Her daughter Sovereign Stella Eglantiers became the matriarch of the Princess family. Condon Texel, Cora, founded the Molly family. In Condon Citation, Elsie established the Sally family. But the most remarkable genetic story, the one that leads us directly to our legend, would unfold through the Sally family, specifically through Condon Citation Elsie. And get this, 7 generations later, this exact lineage would produce a heifer named Condon Arrow Sharon, whose impact on global Holstein genetics would prove absolutely unprecedented. Now we jump to 1991. Don McLean made the difficult decision to disperse his Condon herd. Among the animals offered was a 9-month-old heifer, representing 7 generations of careful, dedicated breeding since his father's original gift. This was Condon Arrow Sharon, carrying within her genetic code the accumulated wisdom of decades of selection. A keen eye from England, J.E. Hale, recognized something truly special in this young heifer. He paid a significant £4,400 to bring her across the Atlantic. And upon her arrival in England, Hale promptly offered her at auction again. That's where she caught the attention of John and James Pickford of Picston Farm in Staffordshire, along with Anthony Bra of Talent Farm in Cumbria. Together, they paid £10,000 for what they saw not just as a cow, but as an investment in a genetic legacy that stretched back to Howard Crane's Depression-era empire. And Sharon? She would prove to be arguably the most powerful brood cow in United Kingdom history. Can you believe it? She accumulated an impressive 60 brood cow points, based on 37 daughters averaging 87 points and 7 sons with a median score of 91 points. Her own production was equally mind-blowing. 36,230 pounds of milk at 4.3% fat and 3.3% protein in a single 305-day lactation. Phenomenal. But here's where the story takes a fascinating turn. Sharon's age. It would become both a challenge and, ultimately, her greatest triumph. When the Pickfords decided to breed her to Carol Prelude Matoto, she was already over 8 years old. Think about that for a second. 8 years old. In the world of artificial insemination, that's considered ancient. Too old for the marketing of AI sires. Conventional wisdom, you see, says genetic progress moved too quickly to waste time on older dams. But the Pickfords and the visionary St. Jacob's Choice program at ABS made a calculated wager. They chose to give excellence a chance, even from an 8-year-old Canadian cow whose best years were supposedly behind her. A bold decision, wouldn't you say? A decision that would later be hailed as providing an unrivaled service to global Holstein breeding. And so the stage was set. On July 23, 1999, amidst the tranquil Staffordshire countryside at Picston Farm, Condon Arrow Sharon gave birth to a speckled bull calf. The Pickfords named him Picston Shottle. They had a system, you see. All of Sharon's offspring had names starting with S and H. My husband believed there was only one Sharon and she would remain unique, Helen Pickford would later explain. To outside observers, Nothing about this birth seemed extraordinary. Just another calf. Yet this seemingly ordinary calf carried an extraordinary genetic convergence destined to reach barns across 6 continents and redefine the very essence of a superior dairy cow. The mating that produced Shottle was, in itself, a masterpiece of genetic planning. His sire, Carol Prelude Matoto, was a highly influential bull known for transmitting strong, functional type combined with low somatic cell counts. By 2004, Matoto was the #1 sire of sons in the U.S., with 96 sons averaging impressive genetic merit. His pedigree traced back through legendary names: Prelude, Blackstar, Chief Mark, Bell, Levation, Bootmaker, connecting him to the foundational genetics of the modern Holstein breed. And crucially, both parents carried strong connections to Hanover Hill Starbuck, whose influence would permeate 83% of sequenced North American Holsteins by the 21st century. Sharon's sire, Madawaska Aerostar, was a prominent Starbuck son, while Matoto carried the Starbuck influence through his paternal line. This union was deliberately designed to create what breeders called a Starbuck ambassador, a bull carrying this legendary sire's influence through both sides of his pedigree. It was genius, truly. Shottle's entry into artificial insemination? It might never have happened under conventional breeding programs. His advanced age dam and unconventional pedigree would typically have eliminated him from consideration. But the Judge's Choice program, which specifically sought bulls with alternative pedigrees, saw potential where others saw liability. And the gamble? It paid off spectacularly. Can you picture the scene that unfolded across the global dairy community on that January morning in 2008? Geneticists and American AI studs doing double takes at their screens. Urgent phone calls buzzing between breeding cooperatives. Progressive dairy farmers in remote corners of the world immediately requesting semen from this unexpected European phenomenon. Shottle's Total Performance Index, his TPI, had soared to an unprecedented 2060, a figure that shattered the ceiling and caused an immediate stir among geneticists worldwide. A year later, his impact was further validated when his Lifetime Profit Index, his LPI in Canada, reached an astonishing 3944, a figure described as never seen before, solidifying his position as Canada's #1 LPI leader. These weren't just numbers, my friends. They represented a new era of balanced excellence in breeding that promised to enhance dairy operation profitability for decades to come. By December 2010, Shottle continued to dominate ABS sire summaries with impressive production figures: milk 1334, fat 63, protein 36, and an overall type rating of plus 2.95 across over 30,000 daughters and 7,276 herds. And his semen? Commanding $100 per dose. Yes, you heard that right. But Shottle's true legacy, his real impact, wasn't just in those incredible statistics. It was in the quiet revolution he brought to dairy farming operations worldwide. His daughters didn't just perform well on paper, they transformed the daily experience of working with cattle in ways that made farming more profitable, more sustainable, and, dare I say, more enjoyable. Farmers from Wisconsin to New Zealand began noticing something different about their Shottle daughters in the milking parlors. These weren't just cattle that looked good at classification day. They were cows that made every day easier. They walked into the parlor with purpose, settled into their stalls without that nervous shifting that marks high-maintenance animals, and consistently delivered the kind of trouble-free performance that allowed farmers to focus on managing their operations rather than constantly treating problems. Tom, managing a 500-cow Holstein herd in Wisconsin, perfectly captured what these numbers meant in practical terms. I'd been in the dairy business for 30 years, and I'd never seen anything like those first Shottle daughters. They just did everything right, milked well, bred back easily, stayed sound. It was like having employees who never called in sick. How many of you farmers out there are nodding your heads right now, wishing for that? Farmers quickly discovered that Shottle daughters averaged 18 days longer lifespan than their contemporaries. Think about that for a moment. 18 days doesn't sound like a lot, does it? But that seemingly small difference translated directly into reduced replacement costs and maximized return on investment. These daughters possessed superior conformation that went far beyond mere show ring appeal. Their excellent mammary systems significantly reduced mastitis treatments, while their sound feet and legs virtually eliminated costly lameness issues. The result, a direct reduction in veterinary expenses and easier day-to-day management. And fertility, that critical but often elusive trait, another Shottle daughter strength. They bred back reliably on schedule, maintaining optimal calving intervals and ensuring consistent milk flow, the very lifeblood of any dairy operation. These daughters also adapted seamlessly to varied feeding and housing conditions, proving essential for diverse global dairy operations. And farmers consistently noted their fantastic temperament, which, let's be honest, transforms routine chores into much more pleasant experiences. The global domination was undeniable. Geneticists witnessed something truly unprecedented in research centers across 15 countries where EX classifications were awarded. Picston Shottle had achieved an astounding 9,674 EX daughters worldwide, significantly surpassing other legendary bulls like Braidell Goldwyn with 8,593 and Regencrest Elton Durham with 5,515. This achievement was particularly remarkable because it represented success across diverse countries and classification systems. In Great Britain, Shottle sired 4,979 EX daughters, and in Ireland another 638, making him by far the sire with the most EX daughters in those regions. But his influence extended far beyond his home territory. He ranked 11th in the USA with 1,500 EX daughters and appeared near the top of lists in Canada, France, Italy, Germany, Spain, New Zealand, and Sweden. And what makes this even more significant? Shottle accomplished all of this while being used more intensively and on the best cows worldwide than Durham or Goldwyn. From elite herds in Holstein, USA, to progressive farms in New Zealand, the world's most discerning breeders made the same choice. When they wanted to breed their very best cows, they reached for Shottle straws. This incredible success story established him as the proud NR7 on the list of most influential Holstein sires ever, and remarkably, the only European bull in the top 20, which North American sires otherwise dominate. Just think about that. Even as Shottle aged and eventually passed away in March 2015, his genetic influence continued to expand through an ever-growing network of descendants. Rather than diminishing his relevance, the genomic era actually amplified his impact by making it easier to identify and propagate his superior genetics. A compelling example is the Larcrest Cosmopolitan family. Larcrest Cosmopolitan, a direct daughter of Shottle, achieved the coveted #1 GTPI position among U.S. Holstein cows in the genomic era, launching an entire dynasty of influential AI sires, including Calibrate, Camelot, Chavez Conquest, Casual, and Cyclone, through her daughter Larcrest Crimson, who was named Global Cow of the Year in 2016. Genus ABS continues to actively market semen from his grandsons and great-grandsons, ensuring his genetic blueprint remains active globally. His name frequently appears several generations back in modern genetic evaluations, underscoring his sustained contribution to breed improvement across decades. And the numbers? Conservative estimates project that his 100,000 daughters will produce over 5 billion pounds worth of milk over their lifetimes. Imagine that. Enough revenue to fund thousands of farm expansions, pay for countless college educations for farmers' children, and secure retirement plans for families who bet their futures on Holstein genetics. That's the real impact, isn't it? So, what does the Shottle standard tell us for today's breeders? For modern dairy farmers seeking to capture the economic advantages that made Shottle's daughters legendary, his genetic contribution offers a proven template for sustainable breeding decisions. Understanding these principles can guide contemporary farmers toward more profitable, efficient operations. First, prioritize longevity over peak production. Shottle's daughters consistently demonstrated that cows lasting an average of 18 days longer than contemporaries create significantly more value through reduced replacement costs and maximized return on investment. Modern breeders should select bulls with Shottle in their maternal lines when seeking to extend productive herd life. Second, efficiency equals profitability. His daughters' superior feed conversion ratios and milk per unit feed efficiency address today's dual challenges of environmental regulations and feed cost management, delivering both regulatory compliance and improved profit margins. Third, health traits reduce hidden costs. Excellent mammary systems and sound feet and legs in Shottle daughters significantly reduced mastitis treatments and lameness issues, cutting veterinary expenses and labor intensity when skilled workers are increasingly scarce. This is crucial for today's farms. Fourth, global genetic democratization. As the only European bull in the top 20 most influential sires, Shottle proved that genetic excellence transcends geographical boundaries, offering progressive farmers alternatives to North American genetic monopolies. And finally, sustainable production model. With conservative estimates of 5 billion pounds in milk value from his daughters, Shottle demonstrated that balanced genetics, focusing on durability and efficiency, create generational wealth while meeting today's consumer demands for sustainable dairy practices. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Shottle's story is how it demonstrates the profound impact of human vision and courage in genetic improvement. At every critical juncture, Ed McLean's gift to his son, Don McLean's patient development of the Condon herd, the Pickford's investment in an aging Canadian cow, and ABS's willingness to try an unconventional mating, individuals made decisions that defied conventional wisdom. Douglas Blair, the respected pedigree expert who recognized Shottle's exceptional breeding, captured this perfectly. Picston Shottle has the best proof in the world today. I have never seen a modern pedigree with so many respected Canadian bulls and prefixes. And he lists them off. The bulls Prelude, Aerostar, Inspiration, Commissioner, Ormsby, Thornley, and Citation R. The prefixes Madawaska, Hanover Hill, Browndale, Spring Farm, Thornley, and Roseph all in a row, and Springbank further back. This wasn't an accident. It was the culmination of decades of patient selection, careful mating decisions, and the courage to recognize genetic potential wherever it appeared, even in a heifer offered to a teenager as a leg up in life. The Crane legacy, you see, lives on. While the Crane family itself eventually moved away from the cattle business, Howard's impact, the very beginning of this incredible story, resonates still. The Cranes were a very well-known and prosperous family, and were basically quite honest. Good people. Too bad there aren't any of them left, the records lament. Yet, in a very real sense, the Crane legacy lives on in every Shottle daughter milking in barns around the world. As the dairy industry continues to evolve with genomic selection, robotic milking, and precision agriculture, Shottle's story offers timeless lessons about the fundamentals of genetic improvement. His success wasn't built on following trends or chasing extreme production figures, but on the patient accumulation of functional traits that make cows more profitable and sustainable over their entire lifetimes. Modern breeders would do well to remember that efficiency and longevity are not merely abstract genetic ideals, but indispensable economic necessities for the viability and sustainability of modern dairy farming. The seemingly small improvements Shottle's daughters brought, milking a little better, lasting a little longer, requiring a little less intervention, when multiplied across millions of animals, represent billions of dollars in enhanced productivity and sustainability. Today, when a dairy farmer in Wisconsin watches a Shottle granddaughter calmly enter the milking parlor, or when a producer in New Zealand notices the exceptional feet and legs on his Shottle-influenced herd, they're witnessing the culmination of a story that began with a 17-year-old's choice in a Canadian barn more than 7 decades ago. The bull who should never have been born, the son of an 8-year-old cow deemed too old for modern breeding, became the 7th most influential Holstein sire in history. His story serves as a powerful reminder that the most profound changes come not from following the crowd, but from having the courage to recognize greatness in unexpected packages. In an industry built on the daily miracle of turning grass into milk, Picston Shottle's legacy reminds us that the greatest genetic treasures often come not from following trends, but from recognizing proven excellence wherever it appears. His influence continues through genomic evaluations that identify and amplify his superior genetics, ensuring that the vision of a teenager choosing a heifer in 1950 will shape dairy farming for generations to come. The magic of genetic improvement, my friends, lies not just in science and statistics, but in the human stories of patient vision and unwavering belief that once recognized and nurtured, excellence can change the world. One daughter, one generation, one farm at a time.
This is the bovine, turn the volume high, for the icons of the ages that never will die. From the show ring thunder to the quiet strength they knew, hear their stories now, coming